A crisis that changed a country forever. Venezuela was once one of the richest nations in Latin America. Oil flowed, wealth grew, futures seemed bright. Then everything collapsed. People lost savings. Prices rose faster than anyone could count. Money stopped meaning money. Food disappeared from shelves. Even fuel, Venezuela's most abundant resource, became scarce. Today, millions have fled. Homes are empty. Cities struggle. The currency collapsed. The government changed hands. And behind all of it was one unstoppable force: the economy. But here's the twist. It wasn't just a recession or a bad policy. It was a series of economic decisions that systematically broke a nation and ultimately undermined Nicolás Maduro's grip on power. So how did an economy once riding on the world's largest oil reserves become the very thing that nailed Maduro? That's the story we'll unravel. From oil kingdom to dependence. Venezuela was never an insignificant country. Oil was discovered in the 1920s, and by the mid-20th century, Venezuela had become one of the world's top oil exporters. Oil wasn't just an export, it was the economy. It accounted for an overwhelming share of export revenue. It funded government spending. It underwrote social programs and subsidies for decades. Venezuelans enjoyed high living standards compared to much of Latin America. Yet beneath the surface was a dangerous dependency on a single commodity: oil. This was the origin of a structural vulnerability. When your entire economic engine depends on one rotating part, any shock to that part can stop everything else. How dependence became a trap. When Hugo Chavez took power in 1999, he repositioned Venezuela's oil wealth toward ambitious social programs and government spending. At first, this looked like success. Poverty dropped, subsidies expanded, and the state took a larger role in the economy. But two silent processes were unfolding. Diversification never truly took root. The economy became more dependent on oil, not less. Productivity outside the oil sector weakened. Agriculture, manufacturing, and other industries shrank or stagnated. This meant that when oil prices were high, the economy looked strong, but the foundation underneath was hollow. And then came the shock that exposed that hollow core. Oil prices, windfalls, and false confidence. In the early 2000s, oil prices soared. Venezuela's government ran record revenues. It expanded spending. It promised long-term prosperity. But this was a boom built on unstable ground. Revenues soared, expectations soared, dependence on oil deepened. Instead of using oil wealth to build a more diverse, resilient economy, financing was used to maintain social contracts and political loyalty. Then oil prices crashed. When the price of oil collapsed, oil prices peaked before 2014, then plummeted sharply from over $100 a barrel to around $30 within months. This was the first economic blow, but the second one was worse. When revenue disappeared, the government did not cut spending or reform policy. Instead, it did what many failing governments do. It printed money. That is the beginning of hyperinflation. And in Venezuela, hyperinflation didn't just rise, it exploded. By 2018, price levels were growing at rates recorded in the millions of percent annually. The currency became practically worthless. Bolívar bills were used as napkins, toys, even crafts, because they were easier to burn than use as money. This was not a distant economic storm. This was a collapse that wiped out savings and incomes almost instantly for ordinary Venezuelans. Hyperinflation and human suffering. Hyperinflation destroyed the basic economic functions that most people take for granted. Savings disappeared. Prices changed hourly. Businesses failed. Pensions lost meaning. food became scarce. People fled, millions walked to neighboring countries and beyond, that movement marking one of the largest migrations in the region's history. The economy shrank by more than 75%, an unprecedented collapse outside a war or revolution. And this happened while the government still claimed political legitimacy. This collapse didn't just hurt Venezuelans financially, it shattered everyday life. When economic policy made it worse, Venezuela's leaders didn't lack ideas. They tried many of them. The government introduced price controls, hoping to keep goods affordable for the poor. But as the free market couldn't function under fixed prices, supply dried up, shortages worsened, and black markets exploded. They nationalized industries, hoping to centralize control. This often meant inefficient management led to collapsing production. They tried multiple currency reforms, chopping zeros off the Bolívar and introducing new currency denominations, but this merely masked the underlying lack of confidence. By trying to control prices, wages, and exchange rates artificially, the government destroyed the signals markets used to allocate resources, turning shortages into the new normal. And through it all, corruption siphoned public funds into private pockets, removing essential resources from productive use. These were not isolated policy errors. They were systemic failures that compounded each other over a decade. A shift dollarization and a zombie economy. By 2019, the hyperinflation out of control, the government implicitly surrendered to the market. Price controls were loosened, and the US dollar began circulating de facto in everyday transactions. This saved many Venezuelans from total monetary collapse. It stopped prices from rising uncontrollably, but it also created two economies. A dollarized sector for those with foreign currency, a Bolívar sector where purchasing power remained devastated. A fragile, uneven economy emerged capable of survival, not growth. Some analysts even called it a zombie economy, alive enough to function, but too sick to thrive. The political consequence: economy crushing power. The economic collapse wasn't just financial, it was political. Years of shortages, declining living standards, and rationing eroded support for Maduro's regime. Even among longtime supporters, disillusionment grew. The collapse forced Venezuela into a paradoxical reality. Chávez's ideology promised empowerment, equality, and prosperity through state control. Instead, heavy state control crippled production and shattered confidence. Eventually, the economic pressure became too great to maintain political control without repression, a vicious cycle that only deepened discontent and international isolation. The collapse of state capacity, from electricity grids to hospitals, exposed the limits of political authority built on economic distortion. And by 2026, the verdict was clear. The economy, not foreign intervention, not protests, not elections, was what ultimately unraveled the regime. Modern parallels: history, repeating patterns. Venezuela's crisis isn't an isolated anomaly. History shows that countries overly dependent on a single commodity, with heavy state control over the economy and misaligned political incentives, often face similar collapses. Examples include the Soviet Union's collapse under economic stagnation, Argentina's debt hyperinflations, Zimbabwe's hyperinflation of the late 2000s. All share a pattern: resource wealth without diversification, plus excessive state intervention, plus loss of market mechanisms, plus loss of trust through economic breakdown. Venezuela replicated that pattern on a massive scale. 3 clear takeaways: economic mismanagement can undo even resource-rich countries. Venezuela had the world's largest oil reserves, yet it suffered one of the worst peacetime collapses in modern history. 2. Hyperinflation destroys more than money. It destroys institutions. When people lose faith in currency, trust in government and markets vanishes too. 3. Dependence on one sector is a structural vulnerability. Commodities can enrich, but without diversification, they can also devastate. Warning: the lesson for the world. Venezuela didn't collapse because it lacked oil. It collapsed because it used oil as a crutch instead of a foundation. No country is immune to economic reality. When incentives are ignored, markets are suppressed, and trust is lost, no amount of political ideology can sustain an economy. And in a globally interconnected world, economic collapse doesn't stay contained. It ripples outward with real consequences. Call to action. If you found this deep dive into Venezuela's economic verdict enlightening, subscribe for more videos that peel back the hidden economic forces shaping history and future power. Share this video with someone who thinks economic policy is just numbers, because in reality, it shapes lives, nations, and history itself.